Chapter 6, Escapes. Days were going by. Progress was slow, but we were figuring things out. We had 2 more hints from our abductors as people hacked their way through the handheld computer. The first opened about 10 luxury suites at the top of the bleacher to us. A Swedish fellow had been playing with the map game in the computer. A previously misunderstood page in the software that allowed one to move graphic shapes around. Boxes, triangles, and architect symbols for trees, and this is why he called it the map game page. We had assumed until then that it was a familiar paint program, like the ones on most people's busies at home. But he proved differently. At our evening meeting, he gave a demonstration that showed what it really did. He activated a mode we hadn't seen that put the map page up on the big screen. Then he got some of us to put a box in the corner of our screen and another group to put a circle. The big screen showed a BOXY circle. If 500 of us put 6 lines on our handhelds, and another 500 put 2 lines, the big screen showed 4 lines. It makes the different pictures into an average that he pointed out. Someone else got up. This would be very useful in the political process. I was once an alderman in Costa Rica, and I spent years arguing about where a statue should go, where a new plaza should be built. With this, everyone could draw their map of a utopian city, and the computer could merge the visions. Like a composer blends musicians, said an Italian. Or a cook blends spices, said a Thai. I stood up. But doesn't it give the computer a bit too much power? Someone blending ingredients makes soup. Sometimes it just makes garbage. It might have been a function of our boredom that we discussed it for hours. Finally, an American woman from California stood up. Her name was Linda. Look, it's obvious to me now that we're going to be used to vote for something here. If we were slaves, the food wouldn't be so good, and there wouldn't be clean towels and laundromats. So let's try to please our captors and get out of here. Let's practice designing some stuff. Collective design is something people should have worked out years ago anyway. But first we had to spend a few more days working out our program. Some people got obsessed with this, while others worked on checking the physical space. Mysteriously, doors that had been locked before now opened. The first was a room that showed the workings of the kitchen. We couldn't get in, but now we had big windows to watch the food being prepared. To us, it had, until then, been a very high quality free vending machine. Now we could see how complex the machine really was. Robot arms moved plates and bowls to collect food from dicers and bakers and fryers. Huge refrigerators yielded food from every culture on the planet. Oddly, things seemed rather fresh. Another door had a honeymoon suite. It seemed completely without sensors, hidden cameras and such. A place for couples to have some privacy. The map game turned out to be able to run complex simulations, while most of us sat around chatting or worked out in newly discovered exercise rooms or explored for some open doors. Some people had laboriously worked out the software. In a demo given on the third night, a map of a small town was drawn. Fields and crops were added. Imports and exports were listed. Depending where the villages were put on the earth, different weather happened to them. What we noticed, though, is a few of our villages thrived. I mean, most of the good land on the planet is already populated, so this was the game for fringes, and a lot of them aren't viable, I guess. As a group, we put a village on the north of Scotland. The land proved too poor, and the population dropped from 1,000 to 50. We tried one on rich land in Brazil, but our village was attacked by ecologists angry at us for clearing the Amazon rainforest park. While a small village we put in Australia in Northern Territories survived at 100 people. A village with 1,000 was attacked by rednecks and burned. Same went for Canada and Argentina. This is complex simulation software, said Mishra. Someone had spent a lot of time trying to teach us the realities of our planet's population problems, or have us teach ourselves, said Lucy. Then I got an idea. I thought of the abduction of the Ice City and the Coral City in the middle of the ocean. The next day, I joined the group of 25 or so really keen hackers who sat hunched over their handhelds all day figuring out the system. I talked to the Swedish guy who had started this fad. What do you think the goal of all this is? I asked him. I found out exactly this morning, he said. First, Joseph Bala showed me the first text we found. Up until now, it's been all icons. This was quite incredible. On an advanced page I didn't even know existed was a lot of writing. On mine, it was in English. On the Swedish guys, it was in Swedish. It's learning about us. Personalizing, he explained. The main goal of what it said was that when we could build a village that provided for 1,000 people for 100 years, we'd get a reward. What's our best score so far? I asked. I've got 400 for 500 years, said Anders. But the group was only matched 50 people for a while so far. This is what I want to talk to you about, I said. I've had certain intuitions about what we're meant to be designing here. I didn't want to be too specific. Are there any infrastructural icons we don't understand yet? Funny you should mention it, said Anders. As we've gotten higher scores, more possibilities have become available. For example, when we first beat 200, electric trains were added to the list of things we could put in our town. This morning, a whole bunch of other technologies were added, but I haven't figured them out yet. So Anders and I played video games all day while imprisoned in the middle of nowhere by God knows who. The first thing I tried was a glacier city like the one I'd seen in the Himalayas. After a lot of tinkering, I scored 600 on this and gave up. Worked out the icons for Zodiac type rafts and tried a floating place like the one I'd seen from the helicopter. 800. In both cases, they were missing technologies, things I didn't know how to add. Dinner happened. Lucy said a new door had been opened. It held clothes from all cultures, huge wardrobes and a vending machine that seemed to be able to make new clothes from a design one drew on their handheld. She had spent the afternoon exploring it. The Muslims chanted their evening prayers, and we all settled back to an evening guess game. New knowledge disassembled quickly, but there was disagreement on fundamental issues. Why are we trying to build these villages? How truthful are these simulations? Several third worlders reported that when they drew their own villages from home and supplied the relevant data, the computer deemed them habitable for only 20 years or less. So the aim seemed to be to supply a lifestyle that went way beyond subsistence. Another group that had been drawing wilderness reserves. This was news to me. The same program could be used to predict outcomes not only of human population, other species. All the predictions are dire. Obviously, we're eventually supposed to learn possibilities of modern design, and then they'll have us draw the whole planet with working systems, said an American librarian from Boston, and she wasn't having any of it. What they don't realize is that even as a randomly selected representation of the global population, eventually designing a working planet, we are not the real political world of 2020. North Americans, Northeast Asians, and Europeans still control this planet. We use about 75% of the resources, and although we're outnumbered, we'll never build a system drawn up by a bunch of mindless, uneducated peasant farmers from China and India. No matter how much we might rave in the press about democracy and one man, one vote, what we really mean is one man, one vote if from a rich white country. I'm not sure what is the goal, said Mishra. We do not, for example, have access so far to the relevant global data for the real world. All we have been asked to do so far is dream of a place that 1,000 people might make a living in. And the village is the model of the real world, countered librarians. Linda the Peacemaker was from California, Spokane. New technology, she said. It's all got a hinge on some new technologies that the group has access to. It's like they're saying, what if we could take a fucked up old plant run by big oil, big arms, big food, big autos, and actually run it at its potential rather than the dinosaur system level that is most profitable to the big corporations. That's what I think, said Anders. He showed us at 835 person village he designed in the Namibian desert, and it lasted 100 years in simulation. Each design had a budget, and this one was based on a rather inexpensive solar panel made from local silicon. I suddenly remembered a huge mirror reflector I'd seen on the coral community. It must have been focused on a boiler to make fresh water out of seawater. I searched the menu and grabbed the appropriate icon. The village was moved near the Atlantic, and the simulation ran 100 years for 935 people. A buzz went through the crowd. What would the reward be if we reached 1,000? We all drew again. The Chinese farmer who had overruled most things if they drew the same picture, moved the village along the coast to some mountains. They planted forests along the edges of the fields and created a zone out of transplants. They let the rich soil build up in the belly bottom. But they waste the community's money on some more and more irrigation, trying to grow rice. Our next score was 972 for 100 years. Political instability also cost us. The pompous Boston librarian stood up and said, I've disconnected and scored 1,096 for 100 years. But no miracles occurred. We weren't set free to sue our captors. For example, she sat down. Misha did a trick none of us knew was possible and flipped the output onto the big screen without our permission. Misha had built the same community as the group, but in a deserted region of Mexico. We grew halophytes and micro-irrigated wheat, used the same tricks of mountains and deserts to create a moisture trap, and the simulation ran. It ran at 1,050 for 100 years. We heard large clicks as the latches came open. new doors opening. One of them led out of the stadium. Another, strangely, opened up 10 luxury bedrooms at the top of the bleachers. Another led to a room full of virtual reality equipment. A final door, surprisingly, led to what was apparently a large indoor multi-layer food farm that took up a majority of the indoors of the building. The scoreboard said, "Good work," and it strove between 100 languages. I was one of the first to see the exit door. Escape from the stadium, at least.